If you're going to be successful in avoiding Amazon, you better know what you're doing.
This is the E-Commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome back to the Ecommerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Kiri Masters and I have Julie Spear along with me.
Hey, Kiri.
So on this week's episode, we're running an interview that I did with a co-presenter at the Cohere One Summit in Chicago back in May. And Julie and I both attended this conference and we did a couple of workshops about Amazon. And the crowd was mostly catalog companies and direct mail companies, which was a very new environment for us to be in.
Yeah, it was fun being in an environment where people were considering dipping their toe in or having just dipped their toe into the world of Amazon and getting a taste of what that world is like. We had some interesting conversations while we were there.
Yeah, I remember at one point someone from the audience put their hand up and said, I don't like Amazon because they missed the delivery of a book I ordered 2 weeks ago. And there was levels of knowledge and involvement with Amazon, as we always find when talking with people. You have your personal experience and your personal opinion about Amazon, the company and Jeff Bezos, and do you agree with what they've done to Seattle or whatever the newest political thing is. And then you have the business decision, is Amazon the right place for your brand or not? And it's always interesting having those conversations and helping people separate their personal opinion with what's the best move for their brand and their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was interesting, even within the business realm, the level of experience with Amazon really did run the gamut. And so it was a unique challenge trying to target our talking points to hit and have it be as helpful as possible to the people in the room. But all in all, I kind of geek out anytime I can talk about Amazon and people want to pay attention. So it was an enjoyable thing for me.
Had a captive audience.
I did.
People, they couldn't leave the room. We locked them in.
Yeah, it was a small space. It would have been awkward if they left. So that's exactly what we want in an audience.
Yeah, so the show that we're airing today, there was one workshop which was 3 hours and it was really all the ins and outs of Amazon from our experience working with vendors and sellers, marketing, advertising, operations, brand protection. We covered the whole gamut. And then I did a separate workshop with one of the board members of Cohere One, which is the company that ran the event. His name is Bill Nicolai, and he's been in the catalog industry for decades and really senior and experienced in the data solutions area and now consults for several consumer companies. So Bill and I had a session where we kind of faced off against each other. He was anti-Amazon in a way, and I was pro-Amazon. And we each discussed 3 different scenarios where brands had either embraced Amazon fully and were going all in, or they had embraced Amazon somewhat, but reserved some of their brand and channels for elsewhere outside of Amazon, so they weren't all in. And then there's also a couple of instances where brands actively disengaged from Amazon and were actively not on Amazon. That was a choice and something they continued to operate with that model. So in this interview, we talk on this show all the time about Amazon and how different brands interact with it and how to work the channel and everything. So we're not going to run my part of the session. We're going to run the part of the session that Bill addressed, which is ways that brands have chosen to not engage with Amazon and be proactive in their other channels. So we're going to run this interview. It goes for about 20 minutes or so. First, Bill talks about some myth busting, specific areas where he believes brands can resist Amazon and ways that they can do that. Then he talks about his 3 examples of companies that he has worked with where they haven't been on Amazon, and they're actually very interesting and unique examples. The last one in particular, I think, is particularly interesting. It was a concept that I'd never heard of before, where a brand was able to essentially copyright their products so that Amazon wasn't allowed to list them on the site. And that was a completely unique idea. Came with a lot of time and effort and legal expenses to enact it, but definitely listen into that one as a totally fresh idea to me, particularly. And then after we run the interview on the show, Julie and I are going to talk about Bill's examples there and what he talked about. We have a couple of points where we disagree with Bill, so we're going to get into that later, and then some other interesting things that we want to recap. So once we run the interview, we'll come back and recap Bill's thoughts there. Let's do it.
If you're going to be successful in avoiding Amazon, you better know what you're doing, because if you don't, and if you don't take Amazon into account these days, you may have a real problem with your business. You're not going to avoid them. And it starts with your value proposition. Does your value proposition really require independence? If it doesn't, then maybe you've got to think about repositioning what you're doing, because if it is indeed a commodity and you're getting away with selling at a high margin a product that can be readily obtained elsewhere through any channels, sooner or later, if not already, probably already, someone has figured out that the margin is there and they're already having your lunch on Amazon. So do you require independence? If you do, you have to have a brand that is strong enough to stand on its own. You can't just kind of assume that what you've been doing branding-wise is sufficient, and it could be that your brand is doomed. I hate to tell you this, there may be people sitting in this audience whose brand itself is doomed to exist on its own, and you maybe better darn well get busy and take Carrie's advice and figure out how to sell on Amazon, because if you don't, as she points out, other people will. The second thing to consider is the margin. If you're going to sell on Amazon, if you're going to stay off of Amazon, does the higher margin you're going to get, and you will get a higher margin mostly, most people will get a higher margin by not being on Amazon, selling directly, as long as they can keep their marketing costs down. Does that outweigh the potential sales gain? In other words, you're very likely not going to be able to, in many cases, reach as large a market and have as large a sales as you would if you were on Amazon. But of course, as everybody knows from the famous example, well, how you're losing money on every unit that you sell, how do you make up for it? Volume. Well, if you don't have the margin, it just may not be practical for you to avoid Amazon. And third and fourthly, can you leverage assets that you already possess to create a stronger overall business outside of Amazon rather than inside their system? If you have positive answers to these questions, then just maybe you shouldn't be there. Myths about Amazon. The myths are that you must offer free postage to compete on Amazon. Don't buy that. Free postage is not necessary and is often a disaster if you choose to offer it. The amount of revenue that you lose and margin you lose by offering free postage is probably going to take most of your profits if you do it. So be very careful about that. A common method that is used is to have a shipping threshold, $100 for free shipping. Some people find that works well because it allows them to get a large enough AOV that they will make up with additional merchandise sold for the margin that they're losing on free shipping for those orders that are over 100, and for the orders that are under 100, they have a reasonable shipping chart which actually covers their costs. That's a solution that works. So you don't necessarily have to offer free postage to compete with Amazon. And another myth is that Prime members only buy on Amazon. Not so. Prime members are very high volume consumers. They will buy anywhere, and they're smart consumers. They will search prices, and service considerations are important to them. So they're available, and they don't just search on Amazon. Some Amazon users begin and end their search on Amazon and never look elsewhere. Slowly, I think millennials are learning that that isn't always necessarily the place where they need to buy. So another myth is that Amazon's prices are unbeatable. These days, that's often not so. Many people can charge more on Amazon, and they have to charge more on Amazon because of the withering costs of FBA and because of the 15% typically is that they have to pay to Amazon, that there just isn't enough room for people, even if they have a comparison engine, a price comparison engine, to lower their prices to make the best price. When they get there, there's no profit at all left. So that means that Amazon prices sometimes can be beaten, and oftentimes can be beaten off of Amazon. And the fourth is that Amazon is convenient. Maybe if you want a arm's length transaction where you decide exactly what you want and you order it and you don't have to talk to anyone and you don't need any additional information, that might be convenient. On the other hand, if you need to discuss with a knowledgeable person what that product is about, Amazon is pretty hopeless. They don't take phone calls. They don't offer any information other than what's provided in the copy and in the reviews. And they're sometimes not convenient if you have to do a return. As Curie explained, people don't know that it may be a third party that's handling the return, and they may not have this prime experience of return. Anything goes, they return it promptly. You may not hear from them for quite a while and so forth. So with that said, let's talk about some cases. Here are 3 clients that I have worked with who thrive, absolutely thrive off of Amazon. Each of these companies is growing strongly, is highly profitable, and is not currently have a business on Amazon. One of them is indirectly selling there. I'll talk first about Olive and Cocoa. They're not really an example of someone that resists Amazon. Amazon is simply irrelevant to them. They have a very simple and consistent branding. They sell a product that is totally unique, and I'll discuss that in a minute. Their product cannot be duplicated on Amazon, and they have customer service that goes way beyond anything that Amazon offers. They ship everything, not second day. Everything goes next day. So Amazon is irrelevant to them, and it may be irrelevant to you. Christian brands, they take the profit and others pay the cost. That's their model on Amazon, and it's really working for them. They have a minimum advertised price, and they have special pricing for marketplace sellers, high pricing. So they take the extra profit by charging it to the people that sell on the marketplaces. And they let them compete for the buy box and pay all the Amazon costs. And finally, probably the most interesting and example I'm proud of is Hammer Nutrition, a long-term client of mine for the last 30 years that simply don't want to deal with Amazon and that were found themselves there without intending to be there and had a great difficulty with it, and they succeeded through the application of copyright law to get their product removed from Amazon, and successfully so. And it's the only example I know of someone who has done that. And the beauty of the system we've evolved with Hammer Nutrition is that unauthorized sellers who violate get kicked off Amazon by Amazon. So let's talk about Olive and Cocoa, the package as the brand. Their packaging is a wooden crate, literally branded. They take a hot iron with the name Olive and Cocoa or personalized with the name of your company and brand it on the box. Amazon's not going to do that. Each gift is manufactured on site. Inside the Olive and Cocoa facility, they have a floral shop. They are a florist. They have fresh blooms delivered every day. They pick and pack the blooms in a box, and they only allow for next day shipping. And none of this is a policy that Amazon would ever do or be interested in doing. So they're free from any competition then. Lastly, they have live order assistance. No phone tree, no wait, and customer service perfection. And their search term, oddly, is not found on Amazon because the state, nobody knows when they put in the words olive and cocoa that you're not looking to buy olives or cocoa powder or whatever. And so nobody is able to compete with them using their own brand on Amazon. So they're doing very, very well outside of Amazon. Christian brands had an Amazon store. This is under terms in Tim's metaphor, this is a yellow case where they had an Amazon store. AOV, they went through the exercise. They didn't hire Curie, but they did a serious exercise of trying to sell on Amazon. Their average order was only $35, and the fees and shipping costs were killing them. So, even though I had advised them to try Amazon, when it didn't work out, and when we could see that the business that we were getting on Amazon was unprofitable, I changed my mind, advised the owner, we got to close the store, and we have to raise the price to marketplace sellers so that we'll make it up on the wholesale. So that's what we did. Interesting side effect was that we found with Christian Brands that the buyers from their Amazon store would not respond to their mailing. Once they started selling on Amazon, buyers that were buying their product there would no longer buy from them. That doesn't mean they weren't buying from the catalogs we were sending them. It means they were going to Amazon and buying. So we were doing direct mail marketing, very expensive direct marketing, in order to build an unprofitable business on Amazon. And so we stopped. Another factor we found is that there's no shortage of people who will offer the Christian Brands products on Amazon, and we're perfectly happy to have them compete for pricing in the free-for-all. If they're willing to sell a product and make 10 cents on it, have at it. Do it all day. We don't care. We'll supply the product. You'll take care of the shipping, the taxes, the customer service, and everything else. The result of this, of coming off of Amazon, was that Amazon's Prime buyers can, or any buyer, can get the Christian Brands products, which are mostly religious articles made offshore, rosaries, crucifixes, vestments, various church goods, and so forth. So they get the product from Christian Brands. Christian Brands makes the wholesale business. Sales to the marketplace sellers are growing strongly, and their own business is doing fine. And oddly, and this is amazing, once we got off Amazon, our new to file buyer count, which is the lifeblood of whether or not your direct selling catalog business is going to be successful. How many new buyers you're generating, new to buyer file names are going up. Sales for the first time in years are increasing, not quite double digits, but they were stagnant, and the brand is thriving. Now, my final example is Hammer Nutrition. It's a very specific product sold for endurance athletes. I became aware of it when I was a triathlete and ultimately used their products to complete 4 Ironman triathlons and many very long-distance cycling races. And then I got to know the owner of the company, and I've been working with them ever since. They had faced a problem where their website sales had stopped growing. Their retailers were losing sales because of the Amazon situation. The retail shops were losing competitively to people who were buying the product on Amazon. Customer growth had stopped. New to file buyers had stopped. Margins were going down. And rather than put up with it, the owner of Hammer Nutrition decided to fight back and asked me to work with him on devising a plan so that they didn't, he's an independent guy. He started his business when Jeff Bezos was still a pimply teenager, and he's a tough guy. And he didn't like being pushed around. None of us do, but some of us just won't put up with it. Now, one of the problems is that Amazon will and can use your trademarks. Don't even bother suing them over the use of their trademark. Case law is settled. Your trademarks, from a standpoint of keyword search, are public domain. They cannot use your trademark in trade, but Amazon's position, case law backs it up, is that they simply present public information that is supplied by others. So you're not going to get anywhere with trademarks. Google might cooperate with trademarks and not present SEM ads using your trademarks, although they will not cooperate on SEO for natural search. But don't bother suing them. However, we found a crack in the Amazon, and Amazon doesn't do illegal things. They're not, the dirty tricks that are being done actually are being done by people that participate. They also, I might say, don't do much to stop the dirty tricks, because every time someone makes a sale, ka-ching, their cash register rings, so they're neutral. They don't really care if people are abusing their system to make money off your product. However, billions of dollars, this is my hypothesis as to why we managed to be successful. Billions of dollars of Amazon sales, books, music, etc., are all copyrighted. Amazon, in my theory, is the reason they are cooperating with us is they can't afford to lose their sellers. So what we did is we copyrighted all the labels on our products. All the labels that appear on the packaging, the images are copyright. The words, the photos. We hired a law firm. We produced all new labels. This was not a simple matter. Produced all new labels for every product. We copyrighted it and we perfected the copyright. In other words, we had a documented chain of ownership where the photograph, we had rights to the photograph, where the copy was produced by our copywriter, every aspect of that label. The other thing we did is we instituted a MAP, minimum advertised selling program, for our sellers, saying they could not sell it for any other price other than either higher or lower than the one we were offering. And this wasn't particularly easy to do. It took a year, and it took a few tens of thousands of dollars of legal help to do it. However, once we basically contacted Amazon, our lawyers presented their counsel with the fact that we had a copyright of all these images that people were putting on Amazon. They just turned us over to their department of copyright, and all we have to do is complain that an image has shown up, same day it's gone. Unfortunately, they don't do it automatically, even though they could. We have to make the complaint. So it's a Mexican standoff. We only have about 30 products we care about. And so our employee just goes through his little routine every morning. He's got them all bookmarked, checks every one. If an image appears, he files the complaint. They take the product down. As a consequence, sales are up. And told you it cost a few tens of thousands. I won't say how much sales are up, but it's a 7-digit number as a consequence of being off of Amazon. And customers are coming back. Buyer's file is growing. So what can you do to combat Amazon if you choose not to compete there? You can say no tax right in the search description field. So that may well divert the person before they get to Amazon because they expect tax. Actually, a lot of Amazon products are not taxed, but Amazon doesn't particularly advertise that. If you buy from a third-party seller, you don't necessarily pay tax, but consumers don't know that. So Amazon suffers from the perception that you have to pay tax, and most states have a sales tax. This largely offsets the economic disadvantage of not offering free shipping. You take phone calls. They don't. As a matter of policy, you cannot place a phone call to Amazon. Actually, you can, but it's only if the item costs $10,000 or something like that. They've decided, as a matter of principle, they don't take phone calls. Interestingly enough, with the move to mobile, 50% of searches are now done via cell phone. Many sellers have realized that all they have to do is put in a highlighted 800 number or toll-free number, click to call, and rather than someone going to all the trouble of placing an order, they can just talk to someone that'll take their order while they're on a subway or sitting on a bus. They don't have to operate the inconvenient checkout on a cell phone, and they can complete the purchase faster. That's a big advantage. Your service may be much better than Amazon. You may have real product experts that will help the buyers and handle the returns. And finally, you are masters of direct mail. Amazon, as a matter of principle, doesn't use direct mail. Why should they? They have thousands of people that are sending out catalogs and then using them to find the product on Amazon. So they have no interest in using catalogs. Catalogs have 50% the response of an email and 1,000 times the response of a banner ad. And new technology we heard about yesterday from Navistone CEO Larry Cavanaugh, new intent marketing exists where people who visit visit your website can be sent advertising showing the product that they viewed or like products, and those catalogs can be sent and be received by someone within a day or two of the time that they left the website and are ready to buy. Things are very different in the Amazon world, but the old truths apply. Branding matters more than ever, like olive and cocoa, and it's not necessarily so that you should not be on Amazon. You may very well reach a much bigger audience by being on Amazon, but you might not. And unique product and personal service still prevails in the Amazon universe, in the Amazon era. And another big benefit of Amazon is an indirect one. I would estimate that the direct marketing universe of people who can be sold by remote means has probably doubled because of Amazon. They've brought a lot of new customers into the direct buying business, and they're now available for you to sell to if you do things right.
All right, well, welcome back. We all just enjoyed listening to Bill's take on reasons to either not embrace Amazon as an option for brands or to cautiously embrace Amazon as an option for brands. And shockingly, Kiri and I hold a perspective that embracing Amazon is a way to go. So I guess this could be the counterpoint portion of the podcast. Would you say, Kiri?
That's a great way to put it. We had a brief conversation before we got on the mic here, and there was a couple of things that we both agreed that we disagreed with Bill about.
And what topped your list, Kiri? Because I think you shared yours, and I was saying that was exactly at the top of mine as well.
Yeah. So one of Bill's points at the beginning when he was doing his myth busting is that you don't need to offer free shipping. And in 2018, I disagree with that. Consumers, they've been trained by Amazon to expect free 2-day shipping. That's the norm. That's what other online retailers are offering. People have a psychological aversion to paying for shipping. Once Bill said offering free shipping is a myth, he almost backtracked and said, well, you can offer a threshold, which I think is a fair point because Amazon themselves do that too. It's free shipping over $35 if you don't have Prime. So that was one thing that I didn't agree with Bill on.
Yeah, and just as a consumer, I think I'm definitely someone who has been trained by Amazon to expect the free shipping, the 2-day delivery, to the point that if I do look to order something off a site other than Amazon and it's like a 5-day delivery, I feel like it's coming by Pony Express or something. It really is a psychological, it's a mindset around ordering online now. And so I agree that you can set the threshold. I think the threshold that Bill identified was $100, which is, I guess, depending on product type, that would be a point to evaluate. But I think having the threshold be within reach for the customer for their everyday purchase would be an important consideration as well.
That's a good point. I would expect a $100 threshold if I was ordering furniture online. But if I'm ordering something smaller or less expensive, well, I would expect the threshold to be less. It would be interesting to find out what the actual tension is, like how low can you go? And both from a consumer perception standpoint, as well as it's going to vary significantly depending on the brand's gross profit margin goals and what they need to keep their business profitable. Yeah,
thinking about the actual product is, I think, key there. I think Wayfair, which is mostly furniture, I think their threshold for free shipping is $50. That's definitely a point for consideration. Yeah, I think one of the things that Bill mentioned that ultimately it was a thread that ran throughout the points that he shared. And it's a thread that we've carried through many of our episodes of the podcast here is that really branding matters. Paying attention to your brand and making sure that your offer is reflective of your brand story and who your brand is key. And so I think that's actually one of the points that I agree with Bill. I think we have a different spin on it, but ultimately I agree. Branding matters. No matter how you're selling your product, you have to be vigilant about the branding of your products.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the first example that he talked about, Olive and Cocoa, the flour company, they have experience and a brand that is highly differentiated. It's not possible to recreate that experience on Amazon. And so it makes sense for them to be building out their own channel, just completely ignoring Amazon. It's not relevant to them. It's not relevant to their customer. So that makes a ton of sense. I think where people involved with marketing and selling brands get into trouble is if they don't have a differentiated position and they continue to resist Amazon.
Yeah, that's a good way of kind of capturing that point. I was just thinking about Bill's point around, he listed it as a myth, saying that Amazon is convenient, but it went on to explain that as related to customer service, if you actually need to talk to somebody before you make a purchase. And I would contend that Amazon is the essence of convenient. However, I think the point about customer service and talking to someone but prior to making a purchase, it reminded me of an episode that we aired recently where we talked about the state of brick and mortar and what portions of brick and mortar will thrive and survive in this era of e-commerce. And one of the points that was brought up was that the brick and mortar spaces that offer products that require consultative service prior to purchase, like Lowe's or something where you need to talk to somebody about how to use what it is that you're buying. So when Bill talked through that point, it kind of echoed for me that conversation we had recently about brick and mortar. So there is definitely a level of convenience that comes with the ability to talk to someone at the point of purchase. However, I think when you boil it down to a talking point of whether or not Amazon is convenient, I think it's hard to dispute the one click.
I think it all depends on how convenient your convenient service is. In my opinion, that's part of the reason why Toys R Us just became increasingly less relevant, is that you'd walk into a store, couldn't find an associate, associates didn't know the product, or you're better off just Googling a product or finding it on Amazon to figure out features and benefits and things like that. So if you can offer truly great customer service and that's a differentiating factor for your brand, then great. But if you're just offering substandard, uninterested, unengaged service, then that's not going to cut it.
That's actually a really good point. Customer service for the sake of customer service isn't going to cut it. It actually needs to be of benefit to the customer.
Yeah, and there's plenty of companies who it's been successful for them when you walk into a store and it's an overwhelmingly positive experience. Now that I'm trying to think of examples, they're thin on the ground, but
LL Bean. I mean, and that's a catalog one, but that's also when you go in there and you talk to someone about you need that winter coat. Okay. I think the associates that I've talked to in like brick and mortar for LL Bean, I'm talking as a true Midwesterner here who needs to survive the cold winters. So you really want someone who knows their coats.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. REI, Warby Parker. Yeah, there are good examples out there.
Yes. There we go. Just a handful right there.
The last thing on my list was around one of the setbacks that Bill mentioned about Amazon is that they have to collect tax and you don't. And this is kind of timely because we had the Supreme Court ruling last week, which is really the catalyst of changing the game there, where if you're selling online, you will need to collect tax in each state that you ship orders to. So that's no longer an edge that you have against Amazon. The playing field has been leveled there. And I am about to publish an article on this to say how misguided the press and general public perception of this ruling was, because people were saying, oh, this is going to be a blow to Amazon. It's a win for Main Street. In reality, Amazon wins. They already have all the tools and mechanisms for collecting sales tax on their retail business, on their vendor business. And third-party merchants, the actual small and medium-sized businesses, now have the obligation of collecting and remitting sales tax, which is not, in my opinion, even just about the competitiveness of price. It's the administration of it. And if you have to sign up to collect sales tax in it's not even 52 different states. There are 12,000 tax jurisdictions in the US. That's states, counties, and cities that all have different requirements. They include different zip codes. It's an extremely complicated administrative requirement that is being pushed onto small businesses. So rant over there. We'll link up in the show notes to my article on that if it holds any interest whatsoever. But yeah, that is something that has just changed in the last couple of weeks.
You say tax and my head spins a little bit. It's important information, but 12,000 reporting. Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my head spins a lot.
So did you have any other points from the interview, Julie?
There was one other point that Bill made in the myth-busting section about how Prime members only buy on Amazon. And I think data shows Prime members, a predominant amount of purchases are made on Amazon. But the point he made is that they search prices. And I think that there is some weight to that point as well. I think that ultimately Prime members are a bit savvier and they are going to spend a little time searching around to get the best deal. Prime members ultimately like the convenience factor. So I'm not sure which point outweighs the other.
That's a really good point, because there's lots of studies to show how much more money per year Prime members spend on Amazon. But there's nothing really showing like how much that same set of consumers spend elsewhere.
We just set up a new study. This needs to be dug into.
I know, we just did that.
No, but stay tuned for a couple months from now when we unveil that data. No, I think it would be really interesting to learn how that would actually shake out. And then it tests the hypothesis of which weighs more. Is it low prices? Is it the convenience factor? That's a part that is worth considering.
And I think one of the questions that understanding that would answer is one concern. We're hearing much less of it now, but a couple of years ago, one of the hesitations I would hear from brands is we're kind of nervous about selling on Amazon because we don't want to cannibalize our online retail store. We don't want to cannibalize our in-store sales. And what we found at Bobsled particularly is that there's like an Amazon customer, someone who wants to shop on Amazon almost exclusively, and they, given the opportunity, they'll always shop there. And if a product isn't available on Amazon, maybe they'll go search for it somewhere else on the brand's website if there's like an exclusive assortment on the brand's website. But one quick example of how we've seen this is we had a client who was running a very successful Facebook ad campaign for their products, and we saw that the product sales on Amazon jump after this Facebook ad campaign. The Facebook ad campaign wasn't sending traffic to Amazon, they were sending traffic to their online store. But what people were obviously doing is they'd see the ad in their feed, say, oh, that's interesting, I'd like to get that. I wonder if it's on Amazon. And they would like search for the product on Amazon, buy it, and it was pretty clear there was no mention about Amazon in that ad, nothing like that. People were obviously just preferring to check out on Amazon for whatever reason, because they had their credit card details saved, because there was low friction, because they trust the channel, whatever it is.
Quicker delivery, easy returns.
Yeah.
All those points of low friction of being a customer on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. We've sort of disagreed with Bill on a few points. Ultimately, I understand his position, and I think that what he's done with these companies is actually really great, because in each situation, and he even said about Christian brands, we tried Amazon and I encouraged them to get on Amazon, but it didn't work. It was a huge hassle. We weren't making any money. And the whole reason why I wanted to run this interview is because there are situations where avoiding Amazon makes a lot of sense. My issue is with brands who just decide that they don't like Amazon, they don't want to be involved, so they kind of go off and do their own thing, but they don't have a point of differentiation and they don't have a plan. And that's the worst plan.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you for helping me rehash this presentation, Julie. Good to have a little bit of debate going.
Yeah, I like this one. This was fun.
Thanks. I'll catch you next week.
Bye, everyone.